Good morning, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes, just doing a sound check. Good morning, Ron. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Kevin. Good morning. Good morning,
Excellent.
Osama.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, you
Good
guys.
morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And Mr. Chair, we have all of our committee members, except for Wes Sullins, who indicated that he may not be able to participate today, but we still have quorum. So the other 8 voting members are present, and as well as our ex officios. So anytime after 9 a.m. that you'd like to start, we're pretty much ready.
Okay, let me mark up the items we're going to go through today.
2, 3, 4, and 7.
Right. Just going to mark them up on my matrix so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. All right. We're ready to start, Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here today. I'm Osama Yunin, Chair of the Green Building Code Advisory Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is 9 o'clock on March 19, 2024. Mr. Kevin Day, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Osama Yunin.
Here.
Bob Raymer.
Here.
Alejandra Nieto.
Here.
Sharon Revum.
Here.
Michael Stone.
Here.
Wes Sullins. Jake Tomlin.
Here.
Scott Wayland.
Here.
Ron Takaguchi.
Here.
Okay, we have quorum, and I'll go to the ex officios. Adrienne Harris.
Here.
Good morning. Ellen Owens.
Here.
Good morning. And Hank Kaplan.
Here.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin, will you please read the meeting information and instructions?
Yes. All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Kevin Day, Acting Executive Director of the California Building Standards Commission, and I'll be assisting the chairperson throughout the meeting. I would also like to introduce other CBSC staff in attendance. Laura Mills, who will be helping us with the public comments received during the meeting. Other CBSC staff on the Zoom include Supervising Architect Irina Brosman, Associate Construction Analyst Enrique Rodriguez, and Architectural Associate Timothy O'Malley. This is an open public meeting of the CBSC Green Building or Green Code Advisory Committee. The purpose of this meeting is to ensure public participation in the development of the proposed building standards and to ensure adequate technical review and recommendations to the Commission and the state agencies on the proposed building standards submitted for this committee's review prior to being evaluated by the CBSC Commissioners for adoption. The proposed building standards are required to comply with specific criteria listed in Health and Safety Code 18930, commonly known as the 9-point criteria. The committee members can find the 9-point criteria listed in the Code Advisory Committee or CAC meeting procedures and references provided as part of the materials for this meeting. The members of the public can find the 9-point criteria posted on the Green CAC meeting webpage linked on the meeting agenda. The committee is restricted to the following recommendations: approve, approve as amended, disapprove, or return for further study. For positions to approve as amended, disapprove, or return for further study, the commenter must identify which one or more of the required 9-point criteria the proposed code change has failed to satisfy and provide your rationale. Comments must be restricted to one or more of the required 9-point criteria. This meeting is being held remotely, consistent with Senate Bill 544, Chapter 216, Statutes of 2023, which remains effective until January 1st, 2026, and allows alternate requirements for state boards, commissions, and committees or state bodies opting to conduct meetings and other proceedings by electronic means. In part, this statute allows a state body that is an advisory body to participate remotely as specified. Today's meeting can be viewed on the Zoom webinar and on the CBSC YouTube channel linked on the meeting agenda. I would like to remind the YouTube viewers there is an approximate 45-second delay. Real-time closed captioning is available via automated live transcriptions in both Zoom and YouTube. The public may provide comments on each agenda item by calling in on the Zoom teleconference number provided on the meeting agenda or by using the raised hand feature in Zoom. Instructions are provided on the CBSC webpage. If you have difficulty with the technology, call the CBSC office at 916-263-0916. I will now read the public comment and Zoom instructions. If you wish to make a comment on a specific agenda item, please listen for the committee chair to ask for any comments from the public. The chair will first go through the Zoom participants that have their hands raised. And just a quick note, Chairperson Yunin, we don't currently have any members of the public in the room today here in Sacramento. I'll let you know if that changes. So that'll limit comments to the Zoom teleconference and webinar. So after the chair goes through the Zoom participants that have their hands raised, then the committee chair will take comments from any members of the public that are on the Zoom phone line. At this time, please take yourself off of mute. You may choose to announce your name and who you're representing before making your comment, and then please mute yourself when you're done commenting. The chair will continue through the call queue until there are no questions remaining. Staff will summarize any written comments that were received by 5:00 p.m. Monday, March 11th, 2024. The committee will then proceed to the next agenda item. If possible, please call from a landline using the telephone handset only. This enhances the committee's ability to hear your comments clearly. Calling from a speakerphone or a cell phone reduces the quality of the audio and makes it much harder for your comments to be heard clearly. That's all the instructions, Mr. Chair. So if you'd like to read the housekeeping in agenda item 2, items A through I, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to be reading the housekeeping item right now. Staying on schedule is everyone's responsibility. Please honor time limits when they are identified. I will call for the state proposing agency to address the committee and explain the proposed building standards. The committee will discuss each agenda item. Then I will call for public comments. Please avoid duplicating comments in their entirety. Support or non-support may be expressed for specified comments. Following all comments and discussion, I will call for a motion and second to recommend action on each agenda item relating to proposed building standard. A roll call vote will be taken for each motion. Please stay on the subject matter being discussed and avoid sidebar conversations. Extraneous discussions disrupt the flow of the meeting and can be hard for persons on the telephone to understand who is speaking and what is being discussed. Please be respectful of others' time and opinion and avoid interruptions. We will take a lunch break if needed around noon, but we'll see how this meeting goes. These are the instructions for the meeting. I will go over the agenda where we are. Yesterday, we finished agenda items 1 through 7, which included comments from the public on issues not on the agenda. So that was done yesterday. So what remains today is agenda item number 8, which is Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, and specifically items 2, 3, 4, and 7. And I do want to remind everybody, the function of this committee is to provide actions regarding the proposals by HCD. We're not here to make codes. That's not the function of this committee. Neither do we have the authority to do so. As Mr. Kevin Day mentioned, we can only stick to approve, disapprove, further study, and approve as amended. And approve as amended can only be minor changes to clarify and such. So with that, who do we, the HCD, would you please introduce yourself and do your presentation regarding these items?
Good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tyler Mayo. I'm the Title 24 Regulations Manager. I'm representing the California Department of Housing and Community Development. With me today is Assistant Deputy Director Mitchell Baker and supporting staff. As previously mentioned, HCD will be presenting items 2, 3, 4, and 7 before the committee today. With approval from the committee, I will commence with HCD's presentation, starting with item number 2.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So for item number 2, Chapter 4, Residential Mandatory Measures, Section 4.106.4.2.2, Multifamily Dwellings, Hotels, and Motels. HCD has proposed an increase in EV charging building standards for the 2024 triennial code adoption cycle. This proposal provides clarity for the code user by organizing the requirements based upon the occupancy type, separating hotels and motels from multifamily buildings. Hotels and motels is being relocated to new section 4.106.4.2.6, and multifamily will remain in the existing section 4.106.4.2.2. Within this section, HCD is proposing to clarify which EV charging building standards apply to multifamily buildings when certain types of parking spaces are provided, including assigned, unassigned, and common use parking. As a note, HCD has no authority to define what type or number of parking is required. Parking is controlled by the local city or county and the project designer and builder. For CAM items 2-1, for CAM items 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3, as previously mentioned, HCD is relocating the hotels and motels requirements to a new section within Cal Green. For section 1, EV ready parking spaces with receptacles, subsection 1A, multifamily parking facilities with assigned parking, HCD is proposing when assigned parking is provided that at least one low power level 2 EV charging receptacle shall be provided at the assigned parking at a rate equal to or greater than the number of dwelling units. This is similar to what was proposed in the voluntary measures last code cycle. And that would be the 2022 intervening code adoption cycle. For continuing on with CAM item 2-3, for subsection 1A1, HCD is proposing the required number of low power level 2 EV charging receptacles at assigned parking spaces when the total number of dwelling units exceeds the number of assigned parking spaces provided. The hope here is to address EV charging based on the various types of parking and simultaneously ensuring the greatest amount of EV charging access is provided. For CAM section 2-4 and subsection 1B, HCD's proposal also clarifies the required number of low power level 2 EV charging receptacles at unassigned parking spaces when unassigned parking is provided. CAM section 2-5 and subsection 1C, HCD proposes to add a new section title and clarify the requirements when both assigned and unassigned parking is provided. For CAM section 2-6, for subsection 1D, HCD proposes to continue to mandate that when not otherwise determined infeasible, the low power level 2 EV charging receptacle shall be connected to the dwelling unit's electrical system. In this proposal, HCD further clarifies this prescription applies to assigned parking only, which would be the only applicable parking type that is dedicated to a specific dwelling unit. For subsection 1E, HCD is proposing to renumber receptacle configurations from 1D to 1E. for CAM sections 2-7 and 2-8. Moving to section 2 of this item, EV-ready parking spaces with EV chargers. Similar to section 1A, HCD is relocating the hotels and motels requirements to a new section, which will be discussed further in item number 3 of the presentation today. In section 2A, formerly section 2B, HCD is also proposing that for all other unassigned or common use spaces not captured in the EV charging receptacle requirement that was previously mentioned, that 25% of the remaining unassigned or common use parking spaces shall have full level 2 chargers. For CAM section 2-9, for section 2B, HCD proposes to relocate and renumber the requirements for EV charger connectors and add a new title, EV charger connectors. HCD proposes two EV charger connector types, the J1772 or the J13400. This proposal provides flexibility to the designer or builder to use EV chargers with standard connectors that are usable by EV users. For CAM section 2-10, for section 2C, HCD is proposing to relocate and renumber the automatic load management, the ALMS requirements from the voluntary measures A4106.8.2. This proposal is intended to allow more flexibility in the use of ALMS as an option to reduce the maximum required electrical capacity for the site and to each parking space served. This concludes item number 2.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on item 2 by the committee? And for everyone on the phone or on the web, the committee will ask questions during the presentation. And after the presentation is done by the agency, it'll be open for public comments, and you could comment or ask questions about any of the items on today's agenda. Sharon, you have your hand up?
It's time for questions and comments, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Give me comments right now.
So just like yesterday, I'm proposing that we delete the exception 2 for the lifts. I don't think that's appropriate. And I would prefer to see it deleted than pushed on for further study, just to get rid of that or statement for sure. Secondly, I have a question.
I'm sorry, Sharon, which item number was that?
It's for 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, 2, 6. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They have that lift business happening. And the reasons are 3 and 6. 3 is fair access and 6 is vague language in the or statement. The other thing I wanted to ask is, does this apply to existing projects as well as new construction? And if it applies to existing projects, does the current code allow level 1 charging to satisfy the current code? Because I think it needs to be there for existing buildings. So I don't know who can answer that question, but want to know if
I'll defer to the agency on the existing, but as far as the exceptions, that's not part of their proposal. There is one in 2.4, I see, area parking facility, but 2.6 is not in their proposal, and 2.3 is not in their proposal. Tyler, do you want to answer the question if it applies to existing?
Tyler, I can jump in first and then fill in the gaps.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry, Mitchell.
No worries. No, we're tag teaming this today. Good morning, everyone. Mitchell Baker, Assistant Deputy Director with the Department of Housing and Community Development. Thank you for the time to present our package this morning. So first off, the section of discussion, item number 2, only applies to newly constructed residential buildings. So this wouldn't apply to any existing construction. As the chair pointed out, the exception that exists within HCD's proposal is an existing exception that was crafted at the direction of the Code Advisory Committee at the previous intervening code adoption cycle. This is existing language that we are replicating throughout the code in order to create consistency. but in large part, it is existing language for parking lifts that was again crafted through the dialogue at the previous Code Advisory Committee meeting.
So there is an or statement added to that that I'm objecting to. I also don't think that should be the lift exception should be there at all, but the or statement is too vague. And I would say that that needs to go, and it wasn't part of the previous code. And thank you for clarifying that 2 only applies to new construction. That makes a difference. Thank you.
So you're talking about 2-4.
My notes.
The lift exception under 2-.
The lift exception, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know which number that is.
Yeah, so it exists in multiple locations, but what the agencies have added for this cycle is 2-4.
Okay.
And
So
I assume it's been added to be consistent with the rest of them.
Correct. And if I can respond to the concerns about the existing lifts, if that would be okay.
Yeah, please.
We're on our packet. So this lift exception and some of the comments we've heard yesterday was heard at previous pre-cycle meetings for HCD. And it's a very complex issue with numerous potential health and safety risks. We heard from the lift manufacturers that they produce product, but not the elements of safety that HCD has concerns with. The lift manufacturers were represented at previous pre-cycle meetings and also could not assure the safety of those that would navigate a lift to charge their vehicle, their electric vehicle. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and there are several different types of lifts and manufacturers out there that could potentially create concerns. There are also no known lifts that provide EV chargers to comply with Chapter 11A or Chapter 11B for accessibility. And this exception for parking lifts is an existing one, as I mentioned earlier. And I do want to note that there's nothing stopping a builder from adding EV charging to lifts. This is simply an exemption from the calculation requirements. So through alternative means and methods or any other process that is adopted by the local enforcing agency, there's still a pathway to provide it. But for HCD, we have still not received any assurance that there's safety taken into account or proper listing of the combination of a charger and a lift that would provide that element of assurance for the department to remove an exemption.
All right, thank you both. Mike Stone?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of comments and then one point of information. My first comment goes to the lift exemption, and I would really like to see us get rid of this exception, but I'm concerned about the safety issues, and I would, when we get to where we're going to make the motion, I would again make a motion like we did yesterday to send it back for further study during this code cycle. I don't want it to extend out to the next code cycle. And I've got some, after our meeting yesterday, I got some contact info. The principal engineer from UL is back in Chicago, who covers EVSE equipment. I would want to check with him. And also, apparently, there is a trade association that I was not aware of. It's the Automotive Lift Manufacturers. They have an association, and I would like to check with them as well, because they're going to have the overview of the whole scene. And I'll be happy to share this info with HCD, as well as Enrique from BSC, who did the presentation yesterday. So I really want to do some. Again, I would be in favor of getting rid of this exception if we could be assured that we're meeting safety requirements. So that's number one. Number two, I have an issue with, hold on a second here. Oh, shoot, I'm not finding it now. But the requirement for a circuit to be run from the individual dwelling unit to the parking facility or to their parking space, I think that could be, let's see. Oh, shoot, I can't
So,
find the.
Mike, we could go to Bob Bramer and then come back to you. Does that give you?
Sure, that'd be fine. Yeah, let me find it.
Well,
It's
yeah, and
26-D.
regarding,
So go ahead, Mr. Raymer.
sure, Bob Raymer. And, Mike, it's under the assigned parking portion that you're looking for. First off, in my comments, I agree with Mike that within a very short period of time, if HCD could look into some of the safety issues, with the exception regarding lifts. That's not something I want to see for long-term further study, but to the extent that they could just go back and if they can't feel comfortable, then go forward with what you got. But at least, I'll be supporting further study for that provision. Secondly, I just think it needs to be pointed out that, when we started all of this back in 2013, adopting the regs that took effect in July of 2015, we had 3% for apartments at that time. We've gradually bumped it up to the point to where now we're on the verge of adopting EV charging for 100%. It's been kind of a long journey, but once again, the state's going to be pulling way ahead of where the national standards are about to be made under ICC. So with that, I guess congratulations to HCD. But right now I'm ready to approve as submitted with the exception of a further study for a short-term further study for that lift. Mike, did you find the circuit thing?
Yes, I did. It's 106.4.2.2, item 1D. D is in dog. It says it's
Mike, what page number is that on?
it is on page 3.
3. Okay.
Yes. And it says in its new subsection D, EV charging receptacles in multifamily parking facilities at assigned parking spaces shall be provided with a dedicated branch circuit connected to the dwelling unit's electrical panel. And geez, looking at this, I guess that's not really new language, but that could sure be onerous in some situations if the parking space is remote from the dwelling unit. That could be a very onerous requirement to have to do that. And we have the technology with submetering to be able to independently bill, if you will, the tenants for their usage, rather than having to actually run a circuit from the dwelling unit to the parking space. So I just have a little bit of heartburn with that one there. Yeah.
No, I understand it, except that's not what they're proposing. So I don't think we can comment on that.
All righty.
And can I briefly respond to that, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Briefly. Yeah, and we had this discussion during the previous cycle when this language was adopted, and the way to mitigate that was to add in the latter part of that statement that unless determined feasible by the project building design or designer, right, subject to concurrence from the local enforcing agency.
Okay, got it.
Thank you, Mr. Stone.
And my last point of information is the next section E for receptacle configurations. And again, this is just for information, but those 20 ampere receptacles, the NEMA 6-20R, for the electrical code, those are going to have to be tamper resistant. And I checked with the major wiring device manufacturers, and they do actually have the technology to do that, but it's not a very common receptacle configuration. So I think that's just something that the public and contractors and developers are going to have to be aware of.
Is that just with the 20?
Yes, just for the 20. Yep.
Okay, Bob, are you done with your comment?
I'm done. Oh, sorry.
And Mike, you're done with your comment?
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, Sharon?
2 things. One, I want to go back that lift piece is showing up in 2.3, 2.4, and 2.6. And Bob, if you are recommending that we go for further study, I'd like to also include in that we're recommending getting rid of the or statement and that they just go back and further study the safety piece. But I did want to say that on item, let's see, it's D, so 2.6. This is a mixture, which it seems a strange place to have the lift information, but one of the public comments included a new exception that even we can ask that it be considered and maybe gets pushed off to the next round. But I thought it was a good addition, an exception to 2D. And it reads, EV charging receptacles shall be permitted to be supplied from the house meter as long as individual usage data for each receptacle is made available to the respective dwelling units that the receptacles are assigned to. And that seemed like a good exception, and getting the that kind of options in there would be good.
Yeah, that is actually a good comment. I'm not sure that we can do it just because it's not a proposed language, but it's good for the HCD to hear it anyways. I think that is a good exception. All right, thank you, Sharon. Any other committee comments? Okay, so let's move on to item 3, please, HCD.
Okay, for item 3, chapter 4, residential mandatory measures, section 4.106.4.2.6, hotels and motels. So this is what we previously discussed in item 2. HCD proposes to adopt new section 4.106.4.2.6, hotels and motels. HCD's intent is to separate the hotel and motel requirement from the multifamily dwelling requirement in section 4.106.4.2.2. HCD proposes, this is CAM 3-1, HCD proposes to relocate and renumber existing requirements from section 4.106.4.2.21A to newly proposed section 4.106.4.2.6. 1A, and add the exception for parking facilities served by parking lifts, similar to section 1A in the previously discussed section, and similar to section 1B. For CAM items 3-2, HCD proposes to relocate and renumber existing requirements for receptacle configurations from section 4.106.4.2.21C to newly proposed section 4.106.4.2.61B. For CAM items 3-3 and 3-4, HCD proposes to relocate and renumber existing requirements for EV-ready parking spaces with EV chargers specific to hotels and motels from section 4.106.4.2.2a to the newly proposed section 2a. To increase the number of level 2 EV chargers at hotel and motel park. HCD proposes to increase the number of level 2 EV chargers for hotels and motel parking spaces from 10% to 25%, and identify the EV charger connector requirements in new section 4.106.4.2.62b, and add the exception for parking facilities served by parking lifts. For CAM 3-5, similar to item 2, HCD also proposes to relocate and renumber the ALMS requirement from the voluntary measures section and add mandatory ALMS measures under new subsection 4.106.2.62C. This proposal is intended to allow for more flexibility in the use of ALMS as an option to reduce the maximum required electrical capacity at the site to each parking space served. To recap this item, HCD is carrying forward existing proposals and is increasing the EV charger requirements from 10 to 25%. This will amount to 65% of all spaces at newly constructed hotels and motels to have EV charging access. So 40% receptacles and 25% chargers. This concludes item number 3.
Thank you. Committee discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the next item.
Sorry,
which
just
is
one
item.
comment, and that
Oh,
is the
absolutely.
same comment on the lifts
Yeah,
for
sure.
this one.
Right. Okay. Item 4.
Okay, for item number 4, chapter 4, residential mandatory measures, section 4.106.4.3, electric vehicle charging for additions and alterations of parking facilities serving existing multifamily buildings. As it relates to section 4.106.4.3, HCD has been directed by Assembly Bill 1738 to research, develop, and propose for mandatory building standards for the installation of EV charging stations with low power level 2 or higher EV chargers in existing multifamily dwellings, hotels, motels during certain retrofits, additions, and alterations to existing parking facilities. HCD is proposing to amend the title of this section to meet the requirements set forth in AB 1738. This amendment reflects the new additions of hotels and motels. For CAM section 4-1, HCD is proposing to modify the existing requirements for EV capable when new parking facilities are added and include a requirement for either low power level 2 charging receptacle or a level 2 EV charger that is triggered by alterations or additions to existing parking facilities where a building permit is required. In addition, HCD is proposing to remove the percentage requirements for the total number of parking spaces added or altered be EV capable and require that each parking space that is added or altered under a building permit include low power level 2 or higher. HCD proposes to remove notes 1 and 2 from this section as these requirements no longer support the proposals in the building standards. Additionally, HCD is proposing to add an exception to this requirement for minor alterations requiring a permit with a valuation of 1,000 or less, such as installation of an electrical receptacle for level 1 EV charging. This exception was added after a stakeholder comment that posed a scenario where a building owner was voluntarily installing level 1 EV receptacle for EV charging at an existing packing facility. The commenter suggested that the proposed modification may trigger the requirements of this section and require a low power level 2 receptacle or a level 2 charger instead of level 1. By including this exception, HCD confirms that adding level 1 to an existing multifamily parking space is not intended to require or trigger low power level 2 or higher. This concludes item number 4.
So Tyler, if somebody restripes, does that mean they have to go put chargers in all the stalls?
For
I
that
can
question,
respond.
I'll defer to Mitchell on that one.
Yeah, so the trigger is building permit. If a local permit is required, that would trigger the requirement for the installation of EV charging at a rate of low power level 2 or higher.
So in LA, at least, a building permit is required for restriping.
So under the current, the written language that HC is proposing is if a permit is required, that would trigger the installation of level 2 chargers.
All right, thank you.
Low power level.
Okay, I have several hands up. I'll start with Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am agreeing with a lot of the comments that have been submitted, and in particular with HCD's exception here. I like the idea of a low level or level 1 being allowed. A concern that I've got here, and this relates to AB 1738, why the bill specifically says HCD go forth, develop some regs dealing with level 2 and alterations. I think they've clearly done that. I guess the question I'm going to be asking of the advocates today is if HCD does not concur with the request that so many have made to get rid of the permit valuation and just simply allow, retrofit of level 1, what level of permit valuation would you want? I realize it's kind of an all or nothing request here. But let's say HCD doesn't want to do that for fear that somebody could effectively go and put in 50. level 1 chargers. That's the example that was given to me. And so how do we maintain some level of order here? Is there a permit valuation that you would be comfortable with, or do you just simply want to see the permit valuation stricken in its entirety? So that'll be kind of what I'm looking for today. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you don't
Yeah,
mind,
please go ahead. Yeah.
if I respond to that quickly. So it's HCD's interpretation that Assembly Bill 1738, and as it amends California Health and Safety Code 18941.11, that the legislature desired HCD to require level 2 or greater of EV charging during additions or alterations of existing parking facilities serving hotels, motels, or multifamily. HCD believes it would not meet the legislative direction if our proposal allowed unlimited installation of level 1 receptacles and no level 2 chargers. And I just quickly want to quote the legislation for those that are unaware. As it relates to retrofits, the Department of Housing and Community Development shall research, develop, and propose for adoption mandatory building standards for the addition of electric vehicle charging stations with low power level 2 or higher electric vehicle chargers in existing parking facilities serving multifamily dwellings, hotels, and motels. HCD's proposed threshold requirements as an exception to allow one or a few level 1 EV chargers to be installed without triggering the low power level 2 or higher EV charging requirements. And HCD believes that this is necessary to meet the legislative direction and to avoid any 9-point criteria violations, such as 9-point criteria number 2, to avoid the proposed billing standards being within the parameters of established and enabling legislation. Thank you, and I'd offer any questions.
All right. Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the agency for taking on the subject. Certainly, this was or still is an issue with existing multifamily, and how does the tenant able to charge in their own building where they live, and there has to be some solution. So I do appreciate the agency taking this on, but I'm also looking at the practicality of this, and perhaps even reality, and that is the triggers are very low. Now, certainly for housing in general, we want, as a state, to ensure that the multifamily residents are living in a well-maintained building. And just about anything these days with a $1,000 threshold would trigger the upgrade or the addition of level 2 charging receptacles. That could be, say an upgrade in the bathroom. And certainly if you look at maintenance, say a re-roof or even windows, you have certainly crossed that $1,000 threshold. And the snowball effect here is that, as we know, many of these existing multifamily residents, their electrical services are right on the threshold of minimal capacity. And with the desire to add air conditioning, it certainly brings them over the threshold. So a simple alteration project of $1,000 could easily snowball into a project of several $1,000s. And I'm not advocating for one side or the other. I'm just looking at the practicality of this, and perhaps look into the threshold of the permit valuation to where a very simple job such as replacing a sump pump, for example, in a subterranean garage, or putting windows up in the multifamily dwelling would result in a brand new electrical service, which is not only the service equipment itself, but could affect what the electric utility could supply, going all the way back to pole boxes and transformers and things in the street. So that is my comment to the agency. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Sharon?
Thank you for reading that legislation. I didn't realize the language was that. And So I would like to suggest, first of all, I want to agree with the public comment. They provided a well-supported alternative language that appears from what Mitchell read to conflict with what the law is requiring. I would say that maybe we could ask for an adjustment that said up to 3 and don't have a dollar amount. It's unrealistic across California with labor costs as well. Doesn't make sense. So if the law allows us to do up to 3 level 1 chargers, let's start with that. And I'm afraid it sounds like the advocates are going to have another little round cut out for them to go talk to legislators about fixing it. So that's my suggestion. Let's say up to 3 won't trigger the level 2 and no cost threshold.
Thank you, Sharon. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything that Sharon just said, as well as Ron, so I won't repeat all that. But I would like to, one other point I would like to make is that, as Ron said, if you have to do a service upgrade, that's likely going to trigger utility infrastructure upgrades as well. And right now, and for the foreseeable future, utility transformers have a lead time of 18 months to 3 years for various reasons. So if somebody had to do that, it would really push them back from doing those renovations or those remodels. And I also agree, as Sharon said, with a lot of the public comments that level 1 charging really will meet the needs of a lot of folks. I didn't realize that there was legislation that was behind this, but if we could address that somehow, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to jump over Mitchell, but I agree with what Sharon, Ron, and Mike were saying. I would like to point out that the only time you trigger this for retrofit is when you're making a change to the parking lot. Upgrading bathroom facilities or whatever, something you commonly do in an apartment project, that doesn't trigger it. That being said, it's concerning that restriping in LA triggers, but jurisdictions will require what they require. But rather than having a valuation that's tied to an inflationary index or something, I like Sharon's idea of just saying, look, if you're going to put up to 3 level 1s, you're good to go. That sounds like a simple way to address this. Thank you.
All right. And let me throw in my 2 cents, and Mitchell, you can take it from there. I strongly agree with Sharon's suggestion there. I think that would save a lot of problems. So, but Mitchell, it's all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. Mr. Raymer beat me to the punch there. Yeah, so the legislation specific to the parking facilities, and it would apply to other auxiliary buildings or functions. But I do think it's a reasonable suggestion that Sharon made. I think that's something that HCD can take back to the table and discuss internally. Great suggestion. Thank you.
Any other committee discussion? Okay, that was item 4. Okay, let's move on to item 5. No, I'm sorry, 5 is done. Let's move on to item 7.
All right, perfect. For item 7, Appendix A4, Residential Voluntary Measures, Section A4, 106.8.2, New Multifamily Dwellings, Hotels, and Motels. For CAM item 7-1, 7-5, and 7-6, HCD proposes to modify Tier 1 and repeal Tier 2 due to the expansion of the mandatory measure, resulting in various voluntary measures being obsolete. To start, HCD is proposing to repeal the EV charging Tier 2 and the Tier 1 Option B requirement in their entirety. HCD is proposing to I apologize about that. I got lost. For CAM item 7.1 and 7.3, Tier 1, For hotels and motels, items 1A and 2A, HD is proposing to increase the percentage of low power level 2 EV charging receptacles from 50% to 60%, and full level 2 EV chargers from 15% to 40%, which will amount to 100% of the parking spaces provided with with access to EV charging. For CAM item 7-2, as suggested by HCD stakeholders, HCD is proposing to replace the existing Tier 1 1B with new requirement for the installation of a raceway that provides capacity to install a 208 to 240 volt 40 ampere branch circuit to accommodate new technology changes or fewer higher ampacity needs. HCD further clarifies that when something other than a raceway is provided, adequate conductors must be provided. This proposal as a whole applies to multifamily dwellings, hotels, and motels. For CAM 7-4 and Tier 1 for our multifamily buildings, item 2B, HCD is proposing an increase from 15% of the full level 2 EV chargers to 40%. For reference, the current mandatory proposal is 25%. Continuing with CAM item 7-4, HCD is proposing to leave the exception language regarding areas of parking facilities served by parking lifts. This language was discussed and approved by the CAC during the 2022 intervening code adoption cycle, as previously discussed. Following the exception, HCD proposes to repeal the voluntary ALMS measures and relocate it, as discussed in the previous items, to the mandatory measures. This concludes item number 7.
Thank you. Committee? Okay, I don't see any committee. Oh, there is one. Sharon, please.
Just want to say same thing about the lifts, and maybe we can vote on the lift thing in one item. I'd be hard pressed to tell you where it lands. It's been noted multiple times here, but just maybe we could figure that out and just vote once on what we're recommending there.
Right, and I think the exception here, unless I'm missing something, is not underlined or struck through, so they're not making any proposal to it. Is it somewhere else?
If I can respond to that, Chair, yeah, this
please.
is existing language, but I do want to point out we're talking about a voluntary section as well.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All righty. Sharon, you're
Sorry, I've got too many things open here.
No, that's all right. All right. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so let's open it to public comments.
First hand raised in Zoom is Sven Thiessen.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, where'd he go? There we go.
Thank you for unmuting me. Sven Thiessen, Electric Vehicle Charging for All. First issue is a economic one about single family dwellings. We were told to bring this up yesterday, to bring it up today. And it addresses, again, single family homes. Currently, the regulation is, the language is EV capable, which my understanding is everything but a breaker and the actual wiring. To convert from EV capable to EV ready in a single family home in Palo Alto is between $2,000 and $3,000, because you have to hire an electrician, you have to get a permit, you have to fight with the city. It all takes time. You have to select the electrician. So we would ask that that language go from EV capable to simply EV ready in alignment with the rest of the code. And this is specifically not listed in here, but we have asked for this multiple times, and contained within the ISOR, there is no justification why not this is possible. This will save the state of California, if it is $200 roughly at the time of new construction, to add a simple breaker and the wiring at $200 a pop, on the order of $250 million. Per the eyesore, there's 133,000 new apartments and condos going to be added this code cycle. That's roughly, by CBIA, how many new single-family homes get built, roughly 1 to 1. So this is a huge monetary savings for the citizenry of California. Number two, the lift issue. A large number of us on this call have electric vehicles, and the large number of us charge at home at various power levels. We do this because it is the most convenient, the safest, the most reliable place, cheapest place to charge. And this, on a side note, I want to compliment on the direct wiring, because public charging can be between 2 and 3x what you have at home. Plus, when you don't have direct wiring, you can't have access to the CARE and FIFA electric rates for low-income consumers. So thank you for the direct wiring. So when we go to lifts, please, they're doing it in Norway. They're doing it globally. We want to be leaders here. CARB in the early 1970s mandated catalytic converters because we had to address the problem. They stood fast. Industry wasn't ready for that, you could argue, at the time. That was argued by the car companies at the time. And here we have lift manufacturers saying, we can do this and we can do this safely. So please, this is, you're denying a portion of the population the access to electric vehicles. And become 2035, we're not going to be able to buy gasoline cars. So this is not good at all here. Third,
Okay, just to let you know, you have about 45 seconds left.
Okay, this is critical right here, because this is, in the way, the most important piece. I would ask that you pull up that legislation, AB 1738, Section A1, commencing with the next trial, blah, 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 of the code cycle, the Commission and Department of Housing and Development shall, there's the word shall, research and develop. And then the next language wording is, and may propose for adoption, blah, 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 blah. I really think that language needs to be pulled up, and I can, if I'm allowed to share screen, I can show that legislative language. The wording is may, okay? Not shall propose, it's may propose.
Okay, Sven, I have to interrupt. Your time is up. If you want to finish one last sentence, go ahead.
A third of EV drivers charge at L1. Why deny them this?
All right, thank you. Can we call the next public comment, please?
Philip Kabernick.
Go ahead.
Hi there. Hey, can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much to the Code Advisory Committee and to staff here. Philip Kobernick from Peninsula Clean Energy. These comments are going to build upon the submitted comments on behalf of 11 CCAs across the state.
Hey, Philip, can I stop you and I will reset my timer here?
Sure.
I just noticed Bob Raymer's hand is up. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to quickly respond to Sven's statement. Yesterday, when we said it'll be discussed today, we were referring to the lift issue, and especially the exception regarding retrofits level 2 versus level 1. We weren't referring to single-family dwellings. That was a back and forth that HCD had with stakeholders. There were some who supported, some who didn't. But HCD is not proposing a code change, and it would be out of order for us to basically deliberate on an item that HCD is not proposing for change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, Philip. Thank you for your patience. Please go ahead.
Hey, no problem at all. What I was saying was that my comments build on the submitted comments that we sent in on behalf of 11 CCAs, Community Choice Energy Programs across the state, as well as Cal CCA, and also a letter on behalf of 4 state legislators showing how critical this issue is. This is related to item 4.1 on the alterations and additions section. I'm going to start with the most critical item here. What I'm hearing today is that HCD is misinterpreting the statute for AB 1738, and doing so, this misinterpretation of the statute will have devastating effects for several existing state and locally funded EV charging programs all across the state, including CEC programs and then other PG&E programs that are using level 1 for additions and alterations. Echoing the previous comment that Sven said, in the legislation, it suggests that HCD staff may propose some language here that relates to additions and alterations. Doesn't say that they shall, and our interpretation of this, as well as conversations, is that the legislative authors did not intend for this to preclude level 1. And so what staff is doing here is having an overly or a misinterpretation of the bill that would have devastating consequences across the state. I really can't emphasize how impactful this minor provision will be here and this misinterpretation of statute will have. So that's my most important point. Building upon that, I do applaud the beginnings of what is an exception, although unfortunately the exception language here does not have enough of a real world impact, nor does extending the exception to 3 level 1 outlets. There are several programs, including ours, that are seeking to install dozens and dozens of level 1 charging at multifamily properties, a segment that we have not made significant progress on as a state. And to emphasize this point, the CEC says we need 1 million chargers installed in the next 5 years, and we have just 100,000 installed. We have 900,000 to go in 5 years. Level 1 at multifamily is a pretty important part of that mix, and we really shouldn't be adding barriers to meeting a goal that we're already off track on. We need to be figuring out ways to do this better. So unfortunately, this language as adopted, even with the current exception, would be making our progress towards state and governor's targets more difficult instead of helping to facilitate that. So our comments, as well as the comments from legislators, suggest that staff broaden the exception so that additions and alterations in multifamily can put in any number of level 1 outlets at any permit valuation. And just to add here, level 1 is an affordable solution, but it's not that cheap. It's not $1,000 cheap. It does cost more. So that
Excuse me, Philip, you have 1 minute left.
Sure. So we provided some suggested language there. We're encouraging the exception to be broadened so that multifamily operators can voluntarily install level 1 at any amounts and at any value so that we can all reach our collective EV charging goals that the governor, state legislation, and other agency directions are asking us as a state to meet. There's much more details in the comment letters. I wanted to point that out and also add my critical comments that are not in the letters on the misinterpretation of statute, which is very, very important here. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we go to the next public comments, Mitchell, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If you don't mind a quick response, since we've had 2 comments on the same level 1 comment.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. So first off, thank you. We appreciate the comments. HCD has, as I previously mentioned, interpret the statute and proposing building standards consistent with our interpretation. I've already recited the statute, the section in particular interest, but just want to mention when it comes to the statute, you can't just pose something out of isolation. There's a second section that I want to quote it again, just so everyone hears it one more time, and I'll read it slowly. The Department of Housing and Community Development shall research, develop, and propose for adoption mandatory building standards. This is subsection 2. It charges HCD with proposing for adoption building standards at a rate of low power level 2 or higher. HCD's interpretation of this statute is to propose the building standards that are in front of you today with reasonable exceptions, and we're amenable to further study has been discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the next public comment, please.
Christian Corby.
And I just do want to advise, when you call in, there is a time limit of 4 minutes. So, but I'll let you know when it's about a minute left so you can formulate your thoughts. Okay, go ahead, Christian. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you. I'll try to be quick. So thank you, Christian Corby. I'm the Deputy Executive Director at the California Electric Transportation Coalition, or CALITC. And my comments are just for item 4. So we're recommending that this be denied or sent back for further study. We recommend allowing level 1 charging for existing buildings when triggered by these additions or alterations. We also, just to respond directly to Committee Member Raymer's question, we do believe that there should be no permit valuation included in this exception. We also recognize Committee Member Takaguchi, your concerns around timelines for utility upgrades, but we really have to recognize that California has some extremely ambitious goals, not only around electric vehicles, but around building electrification. And we need these buildings to start doing some upgrades so that utilities know what demand is coming, and they can't do their upgrades or plan for grid upgrades without these applications. So there is a bit of a balance here. That said, level 1 is a key strategy for getting to our electric charging goals. And I do applaud HCD, just as Committee Member Raymer mentioned. These are ambitious standards and set California apart from the nation. But the reason that they do that is because we are on pace to add a significant amount of electric vehicles to our roads over the next 10 years. So our building standards need to meet those goals as well. Level 1 is key for multifamily housing to take advantage of reduced costs, fitting in more charging and parking facilities that have constraints in electrical capacity, and even preventing vandalism because they don't have the cord hanging off of them. So we really see this as an important solution that is developing into an AC universal socket outlet design that multiple utilities are going to be piloting in the near future. So again, really appreciate everyone's hard work on this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mitchell, your hand is up.
My apologies. I'll put it down.
Oh, okay, no worries. Okay, next public comment, please. Christian, yeah.
Mal Scoron.
Hello, yes, my name is Mal Scaron, representing ChargePoint. ChargePoint designs and manufactures hardware and software to help site hosts operate charging stations. Our site hosts and customers include fleet operators, multifamily buildings, workplaces, retail areas, and hotels and motels, to name a few. My comments are going to build upon some joint comments that we submitted along with PowerFlex and Switch, and focus on some important considerations for hotels and motels relevant to item 3, as well as items 4 and 7. So first off, we support the requirement for an increasing number of spaces at hotels and motels to be wired to support EV charging. We believe this will reduce the retrofit costs for adding new service that often inhibit our customers, such as hotels and motels, from installing charging equipment. We also appreciate that hotels and motels have their own section in the code as proposed here. While hotels and motels are governed by residential code, the charging use case for these kinds of properties are a commercial one. That's fundamentally different from chargers cited at residential properties, such as multifamily properties or even single-family homes. And so from working with these kinds of properties to install charging services, we know from experience that charging is fundamentally an amenity to draw customers from the perspective of these properties. Chargers at hotels and motels provide a valuable competitive edge to attract customers. That is, if you're offering charging, then you're encouraging drivers to stay at your hotel instead of the competitor down the street. And so I say all of this is background that I think is helpful to understand some special considerations that ChargePoint thinks are appropriate for the requirements proposed in this code cycle for EV spaces to terminate in a receptacle. We think it's appropriate to add the flexibility to terminate these circuits in a junction box in addition to a receptacle for several reasons. The first is the ability and flexibility to scale. hotels and motels need and want the flexibility to add chargers to be able to meet their customers' demands. This will help spread costs across many years instead of just front loading the cost of installing chargers or receptacles up front. And so, considering the cost of equipment, we believe that properties should have the flexibility to add equipment as needed, and termination and junction boxes instead of only receptacles would provide this flexibility.
Mel, you have 1 more minute.
Thank you. In addition, we also believe that there are considerations related to safety wear and tear that make it reasonable to terminate these spaces in a junction box or a receptacle. So while residential or single or multifamily homes might come with a NEMA compatible plug, it's really best practice for the kinds of commercial chargers installed at hotels and motels to be hardwired on a pedestal, permanently installed, because you're serving many different drivers instead of just one consistently at the same spot. And so we feel that termination in a junction box to allow for this kind of equipment to scale and be added over time is appropriate. And then finally, we're also concerned about the requirement for receptacles creates an opportunity for their misuse. NEMA receptacles are used for EV charging and lots of other devices. And so we feel that the requirement to add receptacles would allow anyone with access to the parking lot to use the receptacle for anything, not just EV charging.
Mel, your time is up. If you want to finish your sentence, go ahead.
Yeah, so in conclusion, we think it is appropriate to add junction boxes to terminate in these spaces as it relates to the new requirements for hotels and motels. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Jonathan Hart.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you. Jonathan Hart with PowerFlex. We submitted comments with Mal from ChargePoint as well. And a few points I'd like to emphasize, not to repeat what Mal just said. One, for items 2, 3, and 7 with the ALMS inclusion, want to strongly support HCD's inclusion of that language. As we noted in our comments, PG&E found that at sites in its territory that implemented ALM, customers saved between $30,000 to $200,000 per site. They avoided utility upgrades and the time and savings that come from that as well. And the Public Advocate's Office within the Public Utilities Commission in the last year in a study found that load management could save the state roughly $26 billion in avoided grid upgrades over the coming decade. So there are huge cost saving potential with the ALMS. So we strongly support the HCD including that in its mandatory measures. Low power level 2 receptacles mentioned in item 2 and other items as well. Similar comment as yesterday. We support my position would be to support as amended these inclusions, and the amendment being to clarify that level 2 chargers can be used in place of low power level 2 and still meet the code requirements. Item 2 with the receptacle power source, 2 or 3 different people on the advisory committee mentioned this language to include an exception that the receptacle power source could come from the house meter as long as the individual receptacles are sub-metered. I would recommend that the advisory committee support the item 2, this part of item 2 as amended, the amendment being to include this exception. Again, as was mentioned, there are technologies and even pathways available to sub-meter EV charging stations. Sub-metering is typically already happening, and just being able to make that data available to customers is possible and would provide an exception, a workaround when hardwiring to each electrical unit is not possible. One last thought. This was not included in our comments, but just during the conversation today around item 4 and the triggers to alterations, or when additions should be triggered. I looked at the BSC.
Jonathan, you have 1 more minute.
All right, thank you. The BSC in their code revisions last cycle included 3 conditions when alterations would need to include EV capable and EV charging stations. It essentially, they have to do with increasing the power supply to the service panel, or if you're installing solar PV systems, that triggers then needing to install EV parking spaces. As a consideration to HCD, they might consider looking at the BSC's language and aligning with that. Alignment across agencies is typically very helpful for us and might alleviate some concerns of every time you're going to repaint a parking lot, you have to now build out EV charging
Jonathan,
stations.
I need you to wrap up. Your time is up. Go ahead, finish your sentence.
I can't remember where I was. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next public comments, no hands up. Okay, next public comment, please.
Dwight McCurdy.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Go ahead,
good
Dwight.
morning.
Good morning.
Yesterday, Enrique and Adrian commended me to check out Assembly Bill 2127, which was developed to address the governor's 2035 goal of all EVs being sold in California. So I did that. I commented just briefly yesterday. So AB 2127 was designed so it committed the CEC to develop a report showing how we're going to have enough infrastructure to achieve our goals by 2035. In there are different scenarios, but the main scenario presented was that for multifamily homes, we're going to need level 1 charging in the amounts by 2025 of 21,738 level 1 charging circuits. By 2030, we're going to need 121,000 and rounding. And then by 2035, we're going to need 196,000 circuits for level 1 charging. So I would submit to you that there's somewhat of a conflict between the legislation being cited by HCD and this legislation, AB 2127, which says, how are we going to reach our goals? And it becomes really clear when you look at this AB 2127 report by the CEC that the only way we're going to get there is through a combination of efforts, but level 1 is critical, a critical part of that. So this also ties back, so somehow the code is going to have to come to grips with how are we going to reach our goals, not just, and 2 pieces of conflicting legislation. So, and I, of course, would support the need for level 1 charging because it's onerous to require level 2, even low power level 2 in retrofit situations. It's great for new construction, but in retrofit situation, it's a cost onerous step. I would also like to comment from yesterday that I asked how are we going to reach our goals, and as part of that, your response was that Mitchell would have an opportunity to explain how we're going to reach our goals and what the composition of the different charging stations are. So I would like to toss that one to Mitchell. But I was also like to comment that in here for multifamily, it also says we're going to need a lot of level 2, 26,000 by 2025, 191,000 by 2030, and 380,000 by.
You have 1 more minute, Dwight.
Thank you. 2035. In addition, there is one other point, and that is for workplace charging, it specifies 116,000 by 2025. 287,000 by 2030, and 587,000 by 2035. And this speaks to the comment I made yesterday, and I was asked to bring it up today. And that is, instead of having EV capable for workplace charging or non-res, that I suggested that it needs to be EV ready. And when you look at this table of what we're going to have to achieve as far as the number of circuits for charging in order to reach our overall goals, it emphasizes even more that EV capable should be switched to EV ready. EV capable is like a mirage. When you get there, it may or may not be available.
I need you to wrap up, Dwight. Your time is up.
Yeah, that's my main point. I think everybody would benefit by taking a really close look at AB 2020, AB 2127 report by the CEC, which is a very well conceived report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and take a break. Let's all come back at 10:30.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
That was convenient.
Kevin, do you know how many public comments? Kevin, do you know how many public comments we had?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Laura was just going to report that to you when we reconvene, so I'll turn it over to her. Laura?
All right, Mr. Chair, we had one person who already spoke who raised their hand, and then other people who haven't spoken yet who raised their hand after that. So I wanted to check with you on the order.
Yeah, so let's re-adjourn the meeting after the break. That way we're official. Okay, the meeting is re-adjourned or reconvene. So we're gonna take calls in order they come in, just to be fair to everybody.
Okay.
How many public comments do we have?
We have 4 hands raised at this time.
Okay. All right, let's take the next public comment.
Okay.
Who's the next public comment?
I think it's James Fry.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, good morning. You have 4 minutes, James.
Yeah, thank you. My name is James Fry, and we represent the California RUU Codes and Standards team. And we've been enjoying the Cal Green EV process for the last 2 years, and we're really happy to start shining something that's already shiny, in this case. For item 4, if level 1 gets additional attention via further study, our team will offer HCD some tangible examples of how level 2 charging saves energy and how level 2 charging can save customers money. We are also working on upstream capacity savings cost model that shows how ALMS combined with low power level 2 EVSEs can fit into the same limited building capacity as level 1 receptacles. So to this end, first off, we thank HCD and BSC for already requiring higher current readiness via your future-proof language for 40 amp circuits. What we'd like to do is, because 208 and 240 volt charging saves energy and managed level 2 charging can fit into existing buildings, we propose that HCD consider ways to future-proof level 1 infrastructure for upgrading to 208, 240 volts. So we have some language we'll submit later, but it's, in this case, higher voltage readiness to allow future upgrades to the electrical conductors serving low power level 2 charging receptacles. The panel serving EV charging branch circuits shall be equipped with 208, 240 volt feeder conductors. Additionally, there shall be enough spaces in the panel to accommodate 2-pole breakers for each branch circuit when upgraded. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any hands. Let's get the next public comment. Who's the next public comment?
I think it's Ben Britt.
Ben?
Yeah.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm Ben Brint. I'm the Western US Policy Manager at Switch, spelled SWTCH. Switch is a private electric vehicle managed charging solutions provider that specializes in multifamily and other multi-tenant properties. Switch submitted comments to this code advisory committee as a member of the joint EV managed charging parties, along with ChargePoint and PowerFlex. For the sake of time, I will second my industry colleagues on items 2 and 3 and recommend approving those items as amended with our suggested changes. Instead, I will focus on item 4, section 4.106.4.3. In our comments, the joint EV managed charging parties express support for HCD's proposed code changes to existing multifamily buildings, hotels, and motels undergoing parking facility alterations or new additions. Switch recommends approving the section as proposed or with a minor amendment. We understand that it may sound inherently convenient and cost-effective to deploy level 1 infrastructure as opposed to level 2, but this is not necessarily the case for 2 reasons I'd like to highlight. First, given multifamily dwell times can average around 9 hours and hospitality dwell times average even less, around 6 hours, it is critical to offer EV drivers flexibility to top up or replenish a battery within those dwell time windows. And this can only really be accomplished with low power level 2 or level 2 chargers. As an illustrative calculation, level 1 charging at a 120 volt AC outlet with a 60 kWh battery would need roughly 20 hours to charge an EV from 20 to 80% state of charge. If the average California driver does 35 or 40 miles a day, this would take 10 to 13 hours on an average charge, level 1 charge. And if the driver exceeds 40 miles per day, they must charge the vehicle close to full by the next morning, and really can't do that on a level 1 charger. Second, level 2 charging is more effectively paired with load management technologies than level 1 charging. Load management technologies such as automated load management systems, or ALMS, in addition to enabling infrastructure cost savings, also enable EV drivers to enroll in load management, utility, or community choice aggregation programs. These programs can save customers money on electricity rates while helping mitigate grid upgrade costs by shifting EV charging loads away from peak times to off-peak hours. For these reasons, Switch believes an exception to this section that allows level 1 charging should also include amended language that incentivizes level 1 paired with Open Charge Point Protocol, or OCPP 2.0.1 certification, as well as managed charging technologies such as ALMS. Thank you for your time and consideration, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. All right, next public comment.
Go ahead, Laura.
Bryce Nesbitt.
Hello, this is Bryce Nesbitt, a commercial property inspector and sometimes EV system designer from Berkeley, California. I have my own timer, so no need to interrupt me.
Okay.
So in response to Bob Raymer, if somebody came along and proposed doing 50 L1 chargers at an apartment building, I would say more power to them, because they're providing 50 spots of usable EV charging. So I don't see any problem with that. I don't think there should be a threshold for installing L1. I think that should be just completely okay. Second comment, again, I think here for Bob Raymer, I have done a couple of systems where we installed EV charging direct from a tenant meter to a spot. It's not for every building, but it's a completely viable way to do things. It's extremely simple. The lowest cost system is to go straight from that tenant meter to the spot in the right circumstance. So I don't think there's any problem with that section. Third, with regard to mechanical access parking lifts, the issue keeps coming up, and it's a little bit weird because normally the way the code-making process works is that industry argues that they can't achieve a particular regulatory goal. They'll come to you and say, oh, it's too expensive, or it's too awkward, or it violates this other code. And that's not what you're hearing here. You don't have a big stack of EV lift manufacturers coming to you saying they can't do it. You kind of have the opposite. And I want you to put that into context and think about it. I'm happy to answer any detailed questions on any of the electrical engineering, load management questions, or parking lift questions. I've researched the parking lift situation quite extensively. There are a whole bunch of different types, and the short answer there is that each lift manufacturer has come up with a solution that's unique to their own particular situation. If you guys tried to regulate that, I think you'd find that it's a massive job because there's just too many different types of lifts and too many different types of systems out there. Okay, but happy to answer any questions as well and be a resource, as well as being an advocate on the issue of L1 charging and parking lifts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me see. Do we have no hands up from committee? Let's get the next public comment, please.
Sven Thiessen.
Thank you very much. I would ask that the Code Advisory Committee recommend to HCD that in the next code cycle regarding single-family dwellings, they change EV capable from EV ready. I tried to bring this up as part of item number 1 earlier yesterday, but I was told by Osama that this was for item 8. I knew it. I felt it wasn't because it wasn't in the language, but I respected his direction, and so I didn't push the matter. Again, this is going to save $250 million and educate so many people. So that's the first point. Second point, regarding submetering, MXPG&E, X Peninsula Clean Energy. I'm working right now with a startup to do very low cost submetering. But right now, to do submetering, it involves a second utility meter, the installation of a proper utility meter, and that costs on order of $17 a month. Plus, there can be fees at the utility to do that utility shifting. So, and you can't get the CARE and the other FIFA electric rates via submetering right now. So submetering really isn't an option right now. Okay, maybe later on, but right now it is very, very expensive. Third, I cannot stress enough how access to power is critical over the amount of power. Like I said, I teach electric vehicle classes, and the 99% of the people there have single family homes because they have access to that low cost, reliable, safe, again, affordable electricity that apartment complex owners don't have access to via a charge point, a PowerFlex, a Orange EVgo. There's a whole bunch of these electric vehicle service providers, and God bless them, but their electricity costs a lot more at home than the direct wiring. I'm happy to answer technical questions about submetering. I'm actually working on a startup that does low-cost submetering. Thank you.
And Sven, you're right. You did want to bring it up, and I asked you to postpone it till now. So I'm sorry about that. But if you need more time to discuss it, and we'll actually all your comments would go back to that item outside the agenda and will be noted there. Would you like more time to talk about that?
Thank you. I would just cordially like to ask the Code Advisory Committee to again consider directing HCD now to change that one word to save $250 million. And again, as we heard from the CEC legislation, we need 1 million chargers, and we will need more. And this code cycle will generate an addition 100,000 of those ports. So again, I would ask the Code Cycle Advisory Committee, you as representative, to discuss this, and I'm happy to answer technical questions. And we have a number of electrical engineers here that can also ask cost questions about EV capable to EV ready. So I would ask that we actually, unfortunately, go back to discuss this. But the critical issue on the table is, again, this level 1.
All right, Sven. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your understanding yesterday. Mitchell, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If it is of the will of the committee, I would like to respond to the single family housing comment.
Please do.
Get in front of that. Okay, HCD, obviously, as discussed previously, is not proposing any amendments to the EV receptacle charging requirements associated with single family dwellings. As the current requirements is EV capable, it includes the panel capacity and raceway that allows for the installation of conductors and chargers and receptacles at the right voltage, amperage, and configuration to suit the specific homeowner or resident needs for newly constructed detached single-family dwelling. This continues to provide the most flexibility in single-family homes while preventing stranded resources from being installed and either not used or that will need to be replaced with different types or size of receptacles or conductors to accommodate the many different options for EV charging. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to respond to Sven's comments. I would be against moving from EV capable to EV ready in single family dwellings. I think it makes a lot of sense for multifamily dwellings. But in single family dwellings, there's a lot of electric vehicles, and I know Tesla is one, and the new Ford F-150 pickup truck is another one, where their chargers will actually go up to 80 amps. And if you said, okay, we're going to do EV ready, that only requires a 40 amp circuit to be run to that location. So I would be concerned that you're going to have a lot of vehicle owners that are just going to pull out those conductors or run a new cable to accommodate the higher amperage. And again, I think it makes a lot of sense with multifamily dwellings to do the EV ready, but I don't think it makes sense with single family dwellings. And also, I know with the public comments, they mentioned about the permit costs. And as a former code official for 25 years, even if it was an EV ready circuit, I would still want to see a permit getting pulled to install the actual charging equipment, because number one, you want to make sure that it's connected properly. And number two, the National Electrical Code requires that equipment be listed. So that's a couple of items that even if it's an EV ready installation, I would still want to see a permit get pulled to verify that it got installed properly. And number three, just real quick, I know any code officials that are on the committee will know that one of the nightmares of an inspector is inspecting stuff that the homeowners have put in themselves. So anyway, you're not going to be able to skip the requirement for a permit by putting in an EV ready circuit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitchell, your hand is up.
Sorry, it blends into my background. My apologies. It's down.
Oh, okay, no worries. Any more public comments?
I'd like to please respond.
Wait, Sven, just give me a second. Let's go through the BSC staff. Any more public comments from?
Go ahead,
Dwight McCurdy.
Okay, so Sven, I'll come back to you. Let's take them by order. Go ahead, Dwight.
Thank you. Before the break, I had raised the information about the CEC report on AB 2127, acknowledging that this latest report that they published didn't come out until February 2024, but it definitely shows that the only way we're going to get to our goals is by having a lot of level 1 charging, and I don't think that having that exception there in the code is going to allow us to get there. We need to exempt the level 1 charging infrastructure from alterations and additions. But I'm interested in hearing from ACD how they basically unify this AB 2127 report with the current limitation for level 1 as proposed.
All right, before you answer, Mitchell, I think Sven was going to say something, so you could answer both at the same time. Any more public comments?
There is another hand raised.
Is that Bryce?
Do you want to go to Sven first? Two more hands raised.
Let's do Sven since it was a follow-up, and that way Mitchell can answer both. Go ahead, Sven.
Thank you. I want to clarify a number of things as a longtime EV driver, a professional in this field. First, regarding how many vehicles are capable of charging at 80 amps. Teslas are not current new models of Teslas are not capable of charging at 80 amps. There was only a very few number of Model S's that were built capable. It was a dual 40 amp port charger at one pair of dual chargers at one time. And the Ford 150 Lightning is a very small part of the market. Second of all, if you're going to install a breaker that is 80 amps just to do EV charging, because that is considered a continuous load, that's going to probably imply that you're going to need a 300 plus amp panel for your home, particularly if it's all electric. So these are very small cases that you would need to install 80 amp or redo the wiring for 40 amps. So And so that's one thing. So I would push back on the number of vehicles that will require retrofitting or number of households that will go through that retrofitting. Second of all, with regard to EV capable, the whole point of, EV capable versus EV ready, the whole point behind EV ready is that it is plug and play, in that it terminates the wiring, circuit breakers, everything's installed, and it terminates either, and this is a definition, terminates either at a receptacle or at a actual charger, and the EVSE. And you can buy, the reason why it's terminating at either a receptacle or an EVSE, because we agree the technology on EV chargers is rapidly changing. The cost right now, you can buy a networked charger for under $100 on Amazon. They're becoming toasters. And the next generation are going to be capable of bidirectional charging. And so we are strongly advocating this terminating in a receptacle, just like right now under the CEC requirements, they're pushing that if you're going to have a natural gas stove, you have behind your stove a 240 volt, 50 amp receptacle that is plug and play, and you don't need a
Sven, I'm sorry. I need you to wrap up because this is an item, again, this is outside the agenda. So, but I wanted to extend you the courtesy to express your point. So if you could wrap it up, that way we can move on.
I guess I want to reiterate my simple ask that the Code Advisory Committee recommend to HCD that they study and analyze. Obviously, it's not going to happen this code cycle, but that they convert the single family dwelling currently code requirement of EV capable to EV ready. And we don't have to specify the amperages, anything like that, that we can leave that up, or as long as it's currently 40 amps. That would be my ask.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Bob Raymer.
Yes, Mr. Chair. First off, on the level 1 versus level 2, I would strongly advise the EV advocates to revisit the legislature. Many groups, at least 4 from industry, oppose that bill, not because we've got an issue with level 2 low power. We love it. The fact here is it was obvious that there was going to be a tying of HCD's hands to a certain extent by not mentioning level 1 in the bill. And so to provide HCD with the legal flexibility they're going to need in the future, you should probably revisit the legislature. And I think you're going to find you're going to have a lot of support to do that. You've already got 2 great senators, 2 great assemblymen who could champion an update to that legislation. Those are the guys that you're going to want to get to. Secondly, on the single family home stuff, I would suggest that those that want to see a change simply ask HCD to do that. It's completely out of order for us to take action on something that's not on the agenda. Sorry.
All right, thank you. How many public commenters we have left?
There are 3 hands still raised. 2 are new commenters.
Let's take the 2 new.
Thank you. Kevin McDaniel.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Kevin McDaniel. I am the owner of the Automated Parking Company, or TAPCO. And I just wanted to comment on how we have done quite a bit of EV charging stations on our systems, well over 100 at this point. So we do EV charge in both our puzzle lifts and our stackers.
Okay, thank you.
So, yep.
Who's the next public comment?
Ernesto C.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope you guys can hear me well. I'm Ernesto Chavarria, the CEO of the Trivial Company. We also supply, install automated parking machines and EV chargers. And we have worked together with David McDaniel from TAPCO. We have also installed several EV charger systems on ground level and upper levels for the mechanical systems. And we're here to offer any help or answer any questions from our experience on EV charger level 2 in the application of the automated parking systems. In our experience, they work very well, and the automated parking system puzzles in particular are used in multifamily dwellings, and there are assigned parking spaces. So each one of these EV charging systems is applied to the same owner that has their own vehicle. So typically, we either install them for the owner itself, and with the specifications set up to meet their vehicle type. So there's very little risk, and we follow the manufacturing instructions in terms to how to route it with the machine. And open to any questions that you may have if we can be of any help. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any more public comments?
Bryce?
Okay, that's it.
Bryce had his
I
hand
know
up.
you spoke already, but if you could briefly state, so I'll tell you what, since you have already spoken, there's Dwight also, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we'll give Bryce and Dwight a minute apiece, and then I think we need to wrap up public comments. Go ahead, Bryce.
Okay, this is Bryce. I brought the last two commenters, lift manufacturers, on board. They are your resource. They are people who have gone through the certification process. They not only use UL-listed components, but they then go through a separate safety certification process, both in their factory and on their site. So the notions of some of the limitations of lifts that have been said in this call are just not true. There are lifts with ADA access. There are lifts that are fully listed. These are issues that have been fully worked out by this industry. And I encourage you in your 10-day follow-up in order to do what I have, which is to call up these lift manufacturers and talk through these issues. I think it will resolve any concerns that you as regulators should have with enabling lift access. But it's a solved problem, and you've got access to the people who have been through it, lived with it, built it, installed it, and operated it for multiple years. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one more, I thought.
Dwight?
Dwight, very quickly, please.
Yeah, sure. I just want to bring up the fact that yesterday you said you'd give ACD a chance to talk about AB 2127 goals. And you said it again 10 minutes ago. They still haven't been given a chance to talk about it, along with any follow-up conversation that might be worthwhile.
They'll be given a chance to say whatever they wish and after this call. All right, Dwight. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Okay, so let's close the public comment, and we'll give it to Mitchell and to HCD if you want to add any more information based on what you just heard, and as well as Enrique.
Yeah, if you don't mind me going first,
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
to Dwight briefly. HCD is most certainly supporting EV charging and residential occupancies. We've made several quantum leaps over the last code cycles and have done so during this proposal. And I think that confirms HCD's support of EV charging infrastructure and the installation in residential occupancies. As it relates to 2127, that's a research bill. HCD is not explicitly named to provide any sort of insight on that bill. And I do want to point out that in large part, our standards apply to newly constructed buildings, set aside what we have proposed in section 4.106.4.3 regarding additions and alterations to existing parking facilities. And that was predicated on statutory direction given to HCD. In large part, we know that there's somewhat of a defined number of newly constructed buildings that CalGreen residential mandatory measures may impact. And if goals need to be met, in large part, that may require existing buildings to undergo some sort of addition of electric vehicle charging, for which HCD has no additional authority or direction from the legislature other than what we've done and discussed today for additions and alterations. But Dwight, you're welcome to send an email to Title 24 at hcd.ca.gov if you'd like to have any additional information. And for the manufacturers or others that are interested in discussing the lift subject, that same email address would be a great way to get information to HCD. Again, Title 24 at hcd.ca.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Enrique, did you you had your hand up for a minute there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I want to kind of echo what Mitchell's saying. We are certainly interested in manufacturers providing specifically maybe cost data for us. That would be very helpful. So I know Bryce has sent us an email with some contacts, and I'm hoping that the manufacturer representatives or CEOs on the call today are on that list. So yeah, I'd really like to have some further conversations regarding cost. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, can I ask for, if there's no discussion among the group, can I ask for a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm going to start these, by item number. And with item 2, I'm going to be at the request of Sharon and several of the other speakers. I'm going to take sub-item 2-4 out of this proposal right now. We'll deal with that separately. And I would like to move to approve as submitted all of item 2 with the exception of 2-4.
All right, do I have a second?
I have a question. I don't know when that right time is.
Let me get a second and we'll deal with the question. Do I have a second? Okay, Sharon, why did you ask your question? Yeah.
Was it 2-4 or 2-6 that we were considering the proposal for an exception for the EV charger receptacles to the house meter? I thought it was 2-6.
I have 2-4 as further study is what you requested, Sharon.
Yeah, 2-4.
Oh, we're just talking about the lift piece of it?
Just the lift, yeah.
But there's, okay.
Because
I wouldn't want to close 2-6 because I'd like to suggest this exception. Why were you accepting 2-4?
Okay, so, 2-4 is because of the lift.
I'm not accepting it. Further study is what he's proposing.
The lift language is in 2-3, 2-4, and 2-6.
But the only place where HCD's adding new language is 2-4.
I see.
Is everybody good with that?
So can you restate your proposal?
Okay, I'm proposing approve as submitted on all of item 2 sub-items with the exception of 2-4 that we'll take care of in a minute.
I'd like to see an exception added to 2-6, so I'd like to accept 2-6 as well.
Can we do that?
2-6, let me go back.
Okay.
What would you like to do? There's already an exception, Sharon, in 2-6. But that's existing exception. They're not proposing to alter, so we cannot comment on it.
Right.
I'm proposing to add the exception that was proposed by public, which makes sense to me on the level 1 charging. Or sorry, the house meter charging.
I guess I'm not arguing with you, Sharon, but we don't have the authority to tell HCD to do something they're not proposing to change. I mean, they can always, when they're developing 45-day language, do whatever. But as far as this committee action, we can only focus on stuff that has cross out or underline. And that's what my motion was looking at.
So for 2-6, Sharon, we can only address what they have underlined, which is add assigned parking spaces. That's
right.
It.
Right.
We cannot tell them anything else.
Okay, so is the group fine with the motion?
Okay, do I have a second? We can
Yeah, Mike seconded.
Yes, I'll second.
Mike seconded. Okay, let me go back and Okay, give me 1 second just to get my. Okay, so further study on 2.4.
Yeah, we'll deal with that in a minute.
Except for 2.4, everything else as submitted. So I have, the motion was moved by Robert Tramer, seconded by Mike Stone. Okay, can you take the roll, please, Kevin?
Yes, Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Raymer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revum,
Aye.
Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins, Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi.
Aye.
Okay, before I deal with 2.4, Mitchell has an issue.
Oh, Mitchell, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I don't want to go out of order. It's fine.
Oh, okay, with regards to 2-4, I'm making a motion to further study under criterias 3, 4, and 6, and requesting HCD to revisit the language that starts with or, whether or not that should be included, and number 2, to deal with any safety issues or respond to any safety issues. So in essence, if they can't deal with it in the time that's allotted, probably about 10 days, on the safety side of things, fine. But to definitely, as Sharon requested, look at that last part of the sentence under that starts with or. And that's my motion.
Do I have a second? Okay, Mitchell?
Yeah, just want to bring up for the committee's consideration. So the language again is codified language. With the proposal, it would impact one section that HCD is proposing for adoption that is identical to codified language. So this would create a consistency in the same section of Cal Green. Just want to make sure that the committee is aware of that. This suggestion for further study would create inconsistencies in the same section. Thank you.
Now, Mitchell, can't you further study it and just leave it the way it is?
Certainly, that could be an outcome. Absolutely. I just want to make sure the committee is aware of that.
Right. I think it's just the committee is asking for you just to take a second look and see what you can do.
Exactly.
So I don't believe the or statement is in the existing code.
Yeah, that's codified the last intervening code adoption cycle.
Right. Look right above.
At the direction of the Code Advisory Committee.
Without my vote. Okay, I don't.
They're duplicating what's there, Sharon.
Yeah, if you look right above B, where it says multifamily parking, look at the language, the exception that's right above that. And you'll see or parking facilities. Yeah, it's
Okay. You still want to keep your motion, Bob?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Ron Takiguchi.
Okay, can you take the roll, please?
Yes. Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Raymer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revum,
Yes.
Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins, Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Mitchell, you have your hand up? Oh, okay. So
Got a question on that, sorry.
just to summarize, Kevin, 2-4 is further study moved by Bob Raymer, seconded by Ron Takaguchi. Criteria 3, 4, 6. The rest of item 2 is approved as submitted.
That's correct. That's what I have.
Okay, so let's, you have another motion there, Bob?
Sure do. On item 3, before I make a motion, I'm thinking about extracting item 3-2 out and suggesting later for further study to deal with the junction box issue that got brought up. We heard from two speakers that might be a good idea. Is that something that the group would feel comfortable with? Okay. Then, Mr. Chair, I would move approval of all of the sub-items within item number 3, approve as submitted, with the exception of sub-item 3-2.
Okay, do I have a second?
Jake Tomlin, I'll second.
Okay, Jake, let me see.
Sharon's got a question.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Let me write this down. Jake. And what's the criteria, Bob, for that?
Well, right now, we're only dealing with a approve as submitted for those.
Submitted. I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought we're talking about the other one. Sharon, go ahead.
I think on 3-4, which is the charger connectors, yesterday we sent that back with for further study because there was some concern about conflict with CARB's Clean Cars 2 program. So I think we should be consistent with what we're suggesting.
The 2 types of connectors?
Yeah, there was a question about whether that conflicted with CARB's.
I see. That's a good point. Mitchell, you have an answer for that?
I certainly do, and thank you for the opportunity. So I did respond to this yesterday, but I can provide as much clarifying information as needed. So what HCD is proposing is prescriptive receptacle requirements in our proposal that are already codified. There's no proposals to amend that. Within the CARB clean air energy requirements, as HCD interprets it, there is a courtesy cord requirement, and no, it's silent on the prong configurations that would marry up to a receptacle. So HCD has set the prescription, and it's silent within the clean car regulations. And so I'm not sure what HCD can do since we've already set a prescription within our proposed building standards, and it's an area we're not proposing for amendment this cycle. Thank you.
That's why I wasn't proposing further study for that.
So basically, Mitchell, there's no conflict.
Right.
To our knowledge, there's no conflict with what we've proposed that's already codified.
Okay. All right. So I have a motion to approve as. Go ahead, you state your motion again, Bob.
Yeah, my motion that was seconded by Jake is that the committee approve as submitted sub-items 3-1, 3-3, 3-4, and 3-5.
Okay, and Jake seconded. Can you do the call, please? The roll call.
Yes.
Hi, Chair. We're getting a lot of feedback from the BSC microphone. It's unable to hear a lot of the dialogue.
What didn't you hear, Mitchell?
There's feedback on the BSC camera.
What does that mean?
I assume everyone else is getting the same feedback.
Is it still there now, Mitchell?
It was dialogue between Beth and Tom.
Oh, I'm not hearing anything on my end.
Oh, BSC staff. Are they muted? No? I guess everyone's muted, so we'll try to keep an eye on that.
Okay, let's take the roll call for item 3.
Okay, Osama Yunin.
Aye.
Bob Raymer.
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto.
Aye.
Sharon Revum.
Aye.
Michael Stone.
Aye.
Wes Sullins.
And I abstain. I just joined.
Hey,
Okay.
Wes.
Jake Tomlin.
Aye.
Scott Wayland.
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chair, with regards to item 3-2, I would like to move for further study under criteria 4, and that HCD consider whether or not they should add a junction box as an alternative to that section, ending in a junction box, as was requested.
And take out the valuation base?
Oh, no, that's.
That's 3, I'm sorry.
You're
That's
talking about,
three.
yeah, the big item 4. I'm talking about 3-2 right now.
Right. I'm sorry. Okay.
No problem.
All right, so we have a motion for further study for item 3-2. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, can you take the roll call, please?
Yes. Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Raymer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revum,
Aye.
Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins,
Abstain.
Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to item 4.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm moving for further study under items 3, 4, and 6 that HCD consider replacing the valuation portion with just simply a statement saying up to 3 L1s.
All right,
I think, Sharon, is that good with you?
Actually, the talk with the public has changed my mind, and I think there's room in the language of the law that was quoted that can both meet that law, the mandatory building code, and it doesn't say you have to cover all of them that way. And I think the intent of that law and other laws is very clear to provide more access and equitable access. And therefore, I would not limit it to 3 for existing buildings. So that's my proposal, is that we should accept the exception. We should propose for further study the exception where work requiring a permit is being performed for the installation of a 120-volt electrical receptacle or receptacles for level 1 EV charging. Level 2 EV charging is not required to be installed for existing buildings.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Mitchell has a question.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting feedback still. It sounds like not everyone is, but there's dialogue and it's coming through the ESC camera.
Yeah, it's just Laura and I in here and we're not talking. I'm sorry. Not sure what's going on there, Mitchell.
Can you turn off that camera and just stick to this connection, the Zoom?
I can mute until I have to do roll call.
Okay.
Okay, then I would basically like to get some informal feedback from the rest of the committee. Do you want to keep it at no more than 3 L1 or just say L1's good to go?
If I may, I am not in favor of evaluation because nothing, I don't know what doesn't cost $1,000.
Yeah, I think we're all agreeing no value.
I don't think I want to have somebody start doing work without a permit just to avoid that. So I think it's fair if they do significant electrical work in the parking, they provide extra. I think that's fair. But I would stay away from discouraging them from getting a permit just because of the section.
No one wants that.
Mike.
Okay, can you state your motion again, Bob? Oh, there's a hand up, Mike.
I'll tell you what, I'm withdrawing my motion. I think it would be better for Sharon or someone else to basically make it, because I'm not getting a lot of feedback from the rest of the committee. I don't know if you want to stick with no more than 3 L1s or whether you just simply want to say, L1s are exempt from this, or I'm fine with either one of those.
Maybe give Mike a chance to talk. He's had his hand up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I would agree with Sharon's suggested language that just exempts level 1, period.
Okay.
I would be good with that.
My proposal is that we move forward with the exception that was proposed by the public, which is a modification of the language proposed by HCD.
Can you read it, please, Sharon, how it would read?
Where work requiring a permit is being performed for the installation of 120 volt electrical receptacle or receptacles for level 1 EV charging, level 2 EV charging is not required to be installed.
I'll second that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's it's moved by Sharon, seconded by Robert Raymer. Can we take the roll call, please? As modified, is that what we're doing?
Right.
Or further study?
As modified.
Okay.
It's both, this kind of goes to the same bucket, I think.
Yeah. Criteria is 3, 4, and 6.
Okay. Go ahead, if you could take the
And
roll call, please.
clarification, that was further study or approve as amended?
As modified.
As modified.
Approve as amended?
As amended, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Raymer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revim,
Yes.
Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins,
Yes.
Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi,
Nay.
okay, the motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to item 7.
Yes, Mr. Chair. With regards to item 7, I'm going to move approval as submitted with the recommendation to HCD to make whatever consistency tweaks to the appendix as are necessary by whatever they do with the mandatory stuff. You know, as HCD is going to go back, they're going to either make some changes or not, and that may well impact, you know, the appendix C items. So basically, approve as submitted with the understanding that they're going to tweak whatever needs to get tweaked based on what they change with the mandatory. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Ron Takiguchi.
Okay. Can we do the roll call?
Yes. Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Raymer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revim,
Yes.
Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins,
Yes.
Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi,
Aye.
that motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the first of 2 global motions.
Okay.
First, I'd move that we accept the committee's actions on HCD's proposed changes to Part 11, as we've done over the last 2 days.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second, Ron Takaguchi. Can we do the roll call, please?
Yes. Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Raymer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revim, Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins,
Aye.
Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Chair. to kind of bring things to an end, I would move for approval of all items that the Green Building Code Advisory Committee has made on BSC, DSA, and HCD's proposed changes to Part 11.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
All right, Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Reamer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revim,
Yes.
Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins,
Aye.
Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
Ron Takaguchi.
Aye.
That motion carries.
All right, this concludes the Green Building Code Advisory Committee meeting. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Jake Tomlin, I'll second.
All right, can we take the roll call? Well, do I do it? You want to do it, Kevin?
I can do it.
Okay.
Osama Yunin,
Aye.
Bob Reamer,
Aye.
Alejandra Nieto,
Aye.
Sharon Revim,
Yes.
Michael Stone,
Aye.
Wes Sullins,
Aye.
Jake Tomlin,
Aye.
Scott Wayland,
Aye.
and Ron Takaguchi.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, with that, I would like to thank everybody, committee members, for volunteering your time for this important task that we all have. And I know it takes a lot of work and it's all volunteer work, but thank you for doing that and sharing your expertise. I'd like to thank the state agencies. You do have a lot of, it's a lot of hard work. You get a lot of information, you got to absorb it in a hurry and try to make something, balance it with regulations, balance it with all the input you hear from opposing sides, and you do a great job of it. So thank you very much for all your hard work. And members, the public comments, the public, you make us think, you make things better, and your participation is really vital for this process to work. With that, well, I was going to adjourn the meeting, but I see a hand up by Mike Stone.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make one really quick comment. I didn't know if we were going to have time for comments or not, but I'm really glad to see that we have extended the access to EV charging to all dwelling units and multifamily dwellings. I think that's a really important step to take, and I'm really glad to see that. Thanks.
All right. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, Osama.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Take care.